Bubble, a thin sphere of liquid enclosing air or another gas. Blowing bubbles is a favorite pastime of many children. However, bubbles can also be used as devastating devices of destruction. You just need the right bubble maker. This is where the Kompressa comes in. Wowee, what an introduction, eh? The Kompressa is Jirelli's signature secondary. It requires mastery rank 8 and it blows bubbles. It has a base multi-shot of 4, so it blows 4 bubbles at a time, and they do a tiny bit of viral damage when they hit, but significantly more viral damage once they pop after 0.6 to 0.8 seconds in a 2.4 meter area. The weapon also comes with a fairly lacking 6% crit chance, a slightly below average 1.8 times crit multiplier, though a fantastic status chance of 30% per bubble. Normally, the sensible way of scaling damage on the Kompressa is to focus on status chance and status chance alone. However, with the release of 1999, I think there is another option. Now, all the bits and bobs you need for the Kompressa are available from the vent kits in Fortuna. You're gonna have to get the main blueprint as well as a blueprint for the barrel and receiver. You're gonna have to build them separately and then put them all together. Now, while the weapon isn't terribly expensive, it does require a lot of open world materials such as starter marast, ting, dissipation coils and stuff like that. So you will have to do some open world content to build it. But there is enough of that, so let's just give it another shot, shall we? This build is still really good. Like, I'm not saying that it's bad or anything, but let's try something else for a little bit. Secondary Enervate, there it is. This could be really interesting here, even though the crit multi is only 1.8x, because of the way the weapon works. We do need Hornet Strike for some base damage, Diffusion for multi-shot. I think we're gonna skip Lethal Torrent and go for Prime Target Cracker instead. And we're also not gonna run Galvanized Shot, because I'm pretty sure Condition Overload doesn't work on the bubble pops. I feel like Blast on Electricity is gonna be the best way of doing things, so let's get Prime Convulsion actually, because that's just way too much damage. Though I will stick with Scorch instead of Prime Heated Charge because I want the status. Standard Sure Shot because it's cheaper and it actually gives more status, and top it off with Elementalist. That's pretty good, I think. Let's go try that. If this doesn't work, we can try Corrosive and Blast, but I would rather have Corrosive and Electricity. Let's see. Ooh, that looks very promising. Yes, it can overflow as well. It works exactly as I thought it would, so both the hits and the pops. Stack Enervate. That is tremendous. Ooh, I'm actually seeing some exclamation points in there. That I did not expect. This actually does surprisingly good damage because we're not stripping any of their armor. Oh my god, what was that? That was so much red crit. What? Let's get Harold. We can actually get a decent amount of armor strip from him if we switch him. He's already on Corrosive and Coat. And by the way, I made a new Harold video. I will link it somewhere so you can go check it out if you want to see what Harold is all about. Yeah, that is a massive difference. Even with just a little bit of armor strip, not even full armor strip from the corrosion, the damage absolutely skyrockets. Yeah, that is a humongous difference. Let's try Murmur as well. Jesus Christ, yeah. That is extraordinarily destructive. Bubbles go boom. Good god. Let's try Corpus just for funsies. I am not surprised. That is very unsurprising, but still, wowie. Yeah, this has to be better than the Cascadia setup, the empowered one. For sure. Why is it so bloody dark all of a sudden? This actually performs better than expected, because generally, like, exterminates are not the best when all your armor strip is coming from a pet, because the pet needs to... Whoa, that was a big chunk. The pet needs to actually catch up, so it's not very reliable, but yeah, I'm like not noticing it at all. This is really nice. One thing I will say is that because the way this weapon interacts with Enervate, the damage can be kind of random. Right, sometimes you get the crits when you're hitting with the bubbles, and other times when the bubbles are popping, and you want it to go off, or you want to get crits when the bubbles are popping, not when you're hitting. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of the delay between the bubbles popping and electricity zapping, but that's only really an issue for Eximus units. Most normal enemies just die from the blast. Ammo also seems to be absolutely a-okay. I was wondering if you were gonna have to run mutation or not, and it seems or not is the answer. Definitely another benefit here is that the setup has very little ramp up, though with that said, the original like status focused Cascada empowered setup also didn't have any ramp up. This setup has more potential, for sure, especially if you introduce Rivens into the equation, because, well, you can scale crit damage now, which is another stat you can get there. But I have a feeling like, I don't know why, I feel like the empowered setup was more self-sufficient, more like reliable. Ooh, terrible against Eximus bubbles, which is actually a more common problem than you might think. A lot of weapons struggle with these. I feel like I'm being too negative. I don't know why. This is a really good setup. I don't want to like give you the wrong idea here. This is a really good setup. I like this. Bring it on, Torment. You know what the f was that? That was a lot of bloody damage. Holy hell, yeah. That was actually very good. That's like a solid B+ when it comes to acolyte damage. And there is no way the original setup did anywhere near this much. Very cool. Let us try Pure Grenier Armor. Oh, baby, that seems pretty Gucci to me. You know what? I think it might actually just be the delay on electricity procs, because with a Cascadia Empowered setup, as soon as a status proc happens, it deals damage. Here you don't have that. You have to wait for the big electricity chunk to happen, which might make this feel slower. But I don't think it actually is slower, there's just that delay that feels a bit weird. I'm pretty happy with this overall though. I guess it's time to wrap it up. I'm pretty happy with what we've made here. So here's the alternative setup for the Kompressa, and I say alternative because the original one with Cascadia Empowered is still really good, and it also fits into the same polarity configuration. So you can relatively easily try both of them and just pick the one that feels the best for you. We have Hornet Strike for base damage, Galvanized Diffusion for multi-shot, Prime Target Cracker for crit damage, Sure Shot for status chance, Pistol Elementalist for status damage and reload speed, and then we have Primed Convulsion for a ton of electricity, as well as Scorch and Frostbite for blast damage and status chance. I also ended up putting Lethal Momentum into the Exilus because it did fit, but you really don't need to do that, it just makes the bubbles a little bit faster. Now the biggest difference between this and the previous setup is of course the Arcane, Secondary Enervate, which increases your base crit chance until you get an X amount of orange crits, at which point it resets. This is the only source of crit chance on the build, and it provides more than enough. One thing I would highly recommend for this build is either running a pet or an ability that can strip enemy armor, because when you're running Blast and Electricity, armor is your biggest enemy. Now you could just tweak the build a little bit and just run Corrosive and Blast, which, if you're running Emerald Archon charge on your frame, would strip the enemy armor completely, but you would also lose a lot of damage. So I think it's a much better idea to outsource the armor strip to either an ability or a pet. 1999 has been an absolutely tremendous update in my eyes. Even if you remove all the new missions and the new factions and all that, just the arcanes and mods alone have given us so many more options when it comes to builds. It's terrific. I mean, just look at the Kompressa, right? You can run a priming build with all the status effects in the world. You can run a status-focused build that gets a ton of damage from Cascadia Empowered, or you can run an Enervate build that actually scales crit as well. I love that, because if you don't like one of the builds, you can just run a different one. And they're all pretty damn good. So yes, I would absolutely recommend you give this a shot. You should always try out different builds to see which one you like the most. Don't let me or anyone else tell you what you should do. Try it, and if you like it, do it. And as always guys, I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Then I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support, it means a lot to me. And I'll see you next time, bye bye.